Tina Herman had 2 children, a 13-year-old girl, Sarah, and an 11-year-old boy, Cody. She had not come into work on Wednesday. She was a very dependable employee, and it was unusual for her not to show up. When Tina failed to show up for work again, the manager came over to the house. She let herself in through a rear window.
There was blood leading from the front door, through the hallways, back into the rooms and into the bathroom.
We started seeing distinct patterns. We saw 3 separate bloodstain patterns in 3 different rooms. And we saw drag marks from each of those bloodstain patterns that converged into the bathroom. Oil had been poured down, and it looked to be as if it might be an attempt to set the scene on fire. So the motor oil led to a significant amount of footwear impressions that were found in the residence. They were able to find that that was a 7.5 airwalk. We made our conclusion that it was most likely the 13-year-old girl who had walked out of there, and we hoped that she was still alive.
We also learned that one of Tina's close friends, Stephanie Sprang, also was missing and had not been accounted for since that previous Wednesday.
So in the garage, there was a shopping bag, and inside that shopping bag were 2 tarps and a package of heavy-duty garbage bags. They were able to find that purchase, find a video of that person. The video cameras caught the offender going into his car and leaving.
The security person actually said that he thought the vehicle he was driving was a Toyota Yaris. So I thought, well, how many Toyota Yaris's could there be in Knox County? And on the first page for that search, the last one on the page was Matthew Hoffman. He looked very much like the subject in the video and was actually wearing the same shirt in his driver's license photo that he was wearing at the store. They went in through the front of the house and they found him asleep on the couch in the living room and immediately took him into custody.
Mr. Hoffman had what I would call a fetish with leaves. He was a tree trimmer for a while, and he was oftentimes known to climb trees and be sitting in trees.
I mean, the whole house was full of leaves. There was a dresser pushed against the basement door leading to the basement, and it was only on removing that dresser and going down into the basement that they discovered Sarah.
And I could hear Joe yelling, "They found her, she's alive, she's alive."
And in this basement area, there was a large pile of leaves, and then he had placed a number of blankets on top of that, and that's where he was having Sarah sleep. She was tied with bungee cords wrapped around her feet, her ankles, and her wrists, and she also had, like work gloves over her hands with duct tape.
Sarah did confirm in her interview after she was rescued that he had sexually assaulted her. Through her account, it gave us a better timeline as to how things occurred.
Sunday, 13-year-old Sarah Maynard was found, bound and gagged, but alive in the basement of a Mount Vernon home, and deputies arrested Matthew Hoffman.
We have a lot of officers out and around. I think we need your help and you need ours.
He almost seemed comatose in that interview. It was something I had not seen in 22 years in law enforcement, the way he reacted.
When I mention the names, are you picturing them in your head? Last place you saw them? Is that what you're doing? Tina alive, Matt? Sarah's alive. Sarah's alive and well. Yep.
Frankly, he was in control. I mean, he was not responding to any of the normal, prompts that would get somebody to talk back.
You're bothered by it, Matt. I can see that. I can see you swallowing hard. I can see you holding the tears back. Every now and then, one escapes and you can't hold it back. That's what's happening. You know it, and I know it.
I mean, he's sitting there in this situation, obviously in his mind, he's thinking, what am I gonna do? You know, I mean, I've got myself in this situation, and what can I do?
Let's get him back home, man. House was a mess. Blood all over. Be pretty stressful at the time, I'm sure. Just trying to figure out what may have went so bad that you couldn't turn around and walk away. There's family members out there of other people, and all they want is closure. That's all they want. They've been up for days like you and I have, you know? Heart hurts. I don't. Is that your heart? You're saying heart? Broken. Your heart's broken? Because of what happened? No? Someone broke your heart? Why is your heart broken?
It was obvious we were hitting a chord with him. I think he was probably trying to resist a connection initially, as far as doing some form of sign language and trying to resist that.
At least it was communication. That was a big breakthrough, given the fact that he'd been absolutely almost catatonic up until that point.
Hi, Matt. I'm Joe Dietz. I'm a special agent with the Ohio Criminal Investigation. I just came in down here to help these guys out a little bit.
My short-term goal was just to get him to respond. You know, we had rescued Sarah. I thought maybe there's something going on here. A lot of times you just have to wait, you know, because they become uncomfortable with the silence.
I mean, you could have done things a lot differently. So you must have some feelings for it.
I just hit the one area where he thought he could at least express some humanity in the whole circumstance, which was, you know, to respond to the idea that, do you care about her?
But I mean, just shutting it out isn't going to help you find the answers. If Sarah matters to you at all, it's not going to help me give her the answers that I promised I would try and get. She is a really lovely, special young lady. I told her that I would do my best to try and find her mom and her brother.
You don't really want to walk out in a huff. You know, you have to kind of give the impression that, look, I'm here to try and talk with you.
I mean, she has reason to think the worst. The longer she has to kind of ride this roller coaster of uncertainty, wondering what's happened, if she could have done anything, and all that whole package, the worse it's going to be for her.
Well, if I don't respond now, I look cold, you know, from his perspective. And if I remain in this cold, unresponsive state, then I just look like I'm cold and indifferent to her.
If you didn't care about her, you could have just killed her too. I
knew I must have done something wrong. And I found her in my house. She tied up. And so I took care of her.
At what point did you find her tied up in your house? Thursday. Did you ask her? Did you speak with her about, what happened? How did you get here? Anything like that?
She said I'd done it. I figured I had done something I didn't know. I just could try to put pieces together.
In this interrogation, as in any interrogation, the person who controls our ability to continue talking with the subject is the subject. In other words, they're the ones who basically at any time can say, I want an attorney. And, we knew that any attorney that he was going to get was going to immediately tell him to stop talking.
Have a seat.
I don't think it was a coincidence that he picked that home with a 13-year-old girl in it. He chose not to kill her and to take her instead. So we thought, let's see how he will behave with a female interviewer.
Hi, Matt. Hi, my name is Chris. I wanted to talk to you for a second if I could.
Going at him hard didn't seem to work. We decided we were going to go very slowly and a soft approach. So I'm trying to get him relaxed, to think that I'm interested in how he's handling the situation right now.
Where's the sadness coming from?
I think I'm crazy.
Why do you think that?
Because I must have done something bad. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
He wants to be taken care of. He wants to be paid attention to.
Do you want some pizza? I can put it on there.
Especially by a female. And I just fed into him, giving him that focus and giving him that attention so that he would bring his guard down.
Think about what it would be like for you if any of your brothers or sisters, I don't know how many you have, or your mom, something happened to them. You just never know. You never find out where they are, how they are.
I agree that closure is good. I can't give it to him. I want to know what happened. But I'm afraid to know what happened.
He wanted me to be an ally to him. And I think he believed maybe as a female, he can manipulate me into thinking, yeah, this poor guy here, he really doesn't know what he did to these people and he wouldn't really do it.
I know this is hard. I'm not in your shoes, I can't completely understand. But if they're out there somewhere and can be helped, if you're the key to that, they may still be alive. If they're not, they need to be put to rest.
It can be frustrating, but you keep the victims in mind. That's what keeps you going because I'm so focused on that. And until he gives it to me, I'm not going to leave.
Matt, don't go away. Stay with me. You don't have to talk about it. I just don't like to lose you. I'd like to at least be able to stay here with me. What are you thinking about?
My mind just goes numb. I'm not holding on to shame.
I'm trying to get him relaxed, to think that I'm interested in how he's handling the situation right now. But I think it probably caught him a little off guard that I was getting so close to him. It's not the norm for me to be touching the subject. A couple times I put my hand on his knee, but again, strategy is strategy and you do what you need to do at the time.
People will forgive if you're honest and try to help as much as you can. That goes a long way with most people.
This is too big for forgiveness. So I had a really horrific dream last night. And I saw some really disgusting stuff in the big garbage can. And I was hoping I could make some excuse for you guys to kill me.
At this point, all the evidence was there. You know, I have enough information in front of me to know we had him.
He knew he was guilty. He knew he was caught. He knew this was over.
The one thing he had any control over, the last thing in his life he was going to have control over, was this stretch of time by basically dragging this out. So I was going to, just start to turn up the heat more.
I made up that just so I could...
Matt, I don't believe that, Matt. I don't believe it. I think that you know.
I was told that the prosecutor had said that he's going to get arraigned soon, and we knew we were on a time crunch.
But it also takes some of the other people that are, being affected by it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Apparently, between the Knox County prosecutor and the attorneys, they had decided on the deal of taking the death penalty off the table. Once the deal was made, that's when he was willing to give up where the bodies were.
This is the tree investigators say Matthew Hoffman left the remains of his victims. The hole you see here, cut by investigators to retrieve the three.
I remember investigators saying they brought a dog out there and the dog didn't hit on the tree because it was so thick. He went up to the very top of the tree and he dropped the bags the whole way down to the bottom.
He said that he had just identified the house the day before, that he had gone and spent the night across the street in a sleeping bag. Tina left, and he felt like she had gone to work and she was going to be gone for a while.
He stuck with his story that this was simply a home invasion for theft. Mr. Hoffman described how he took care of the bodies by processing them.
Then he thought, well, I'll put them in the tree. He knew of this tree, he spent a lot of time in the woods, and that then he would go get gasoline and come back and burn the house down.
Finding the pleas to be voluntary, the court accepts the pleas and finds the defendant guilty.